there seem to be only a few other subject cards on the topic in this library. Now Bob looks for author cards, trying to locate other books by the same man, Brody. No, just the same one of his books. And Bob doesn't know any specific titles. Meanwhile, Al is checking the encyclopedia. But even the late editions don't contain the material they want. Well, can't find the information in books. What do you do? Bob suggests that the librarian might be able to help. Maybe she knows of some good magazine articles. Al has read some, but he doesn't know how to locate them. Sure enough, she has an answer. Not the specific magazine articles, but an index to those and others they might want. The Reader's Guide, index to periodicals and other literature. Bound volumes for each year. Monthly supplements to cover the latest magazines. So Bob investigates the guide to find new sources of information. Articles are listed by subject and author, but not by title. Bob looks first for a general topic heading, starting with atomic. Here's an interesting entry. That second article, background of atomic bomb. But what do all the letters and numbers mean? How does he find the article? Well, in the front of the guide, there is a key to the abbreviations used. Here it is. Science NL means Science Newsletter. Over here is the explanation of the numerical abbreviations. So Bob prepares all the information needed to find the magazine article. Background of Atomic Bomb by W. Davis. An illustrated article in the Science Newsletter, Volume 49, page 394, dated June 22nd. Starting with supplemental issues of the Reader's Guide and working back to bound volumes, Bob makes up a card for the best magazine articles related to atomic energy. Meanwhile, Al is looking for information on scientists. He turns first to the biographical indexes. Some of the more important are Webster's Biographical Dictionary, Who's Who in America, and Who's Who. Let's take a look at one of them. Al is looking for one of the British scientists we discussed, Sir Arthur Stanley Eddington. But what about those letters? What do they mean? That's right. In the front of Who's Who, as in most index volumes of this type, there is a list of abbreviations. Al easily finds the explanation of the abbreviation OM and turns back to the article on Eddington. Now, he can prepare a card with a brief biographical sketch of this important scientist. While Al is noting biographical information on scientists, Bob looks for articles listed under the names of important scientists. And since their index is to include information on the United Nations, he looks in the Reader's Guide under that heading. United Nations, Atomic Energy Commission. Later, he looks under place names, such as Hiroshima, for additional listings of magazine articles. Over here, Al is continuing his search for biographical information in an index volume on American personalities. A World Almanac interests the boys a few days later when they resume work on their index. This volume will supply geographical information about cities and places. It is one of several almanacs published annually, which contain information and statistics from history to engineering to sports. Since almost any source of information will supply clues as to where additional information may be found, the boys have been compiling a list of geographical references. The first is bikini. Al looks this up in the index of the almanac. Then it's a simple matter to transcribe some general information so that he can prepare a brief geographical sketch of bikini to include in the atomic energy index. Bob carries on, checking over some of the material they have located. Now the atomic energy index is complete. Al is going to use it to find information that will answer our question about the use of plutonium in cancer cures. Al shows us the index, referring to signal cards that divide the index into sections. One of these signal cards is entitled Medical Uses. Behind it are references on atomic energy in medicine.
Say, Al, that's a good one. Radiation treatment of cancer. Can we get it from the library?
Yes, I'll go right now.
While Al is gone, Bob explains more about the atomic energy index. The signal cards have general subjects in alphabetical order. For each place in the index, there's a card with geographical information and then the reference cards. For important persons connected with atomic energy, there's a signal card and a short biography. Behind each signal card are reference cards in alphabetical order. Some cards appear in the index twice. For example, a book by Arthur Compton is listed both in the moral concepts section and in the section on Dr. Compton. He also explains the cross-reference cards. For instance, under plutonium, there's a card that refers us to the card in the uranium group for additional information about plutonium. Yes, it's a thorough atomic energy index, and it will save a lot of time finding the information. And then,
Here it is.
Al asks if he
Hang up her clothes and be at breakfast on schedule. Taking care of her room is one of her obligations in this household. Junior has already completed his household chores for the morning, so he can spend some time on his hobby. Notice how his equipment is carefully kept. He won't be searching for a lost spool or hook. There are strict orders in this house for no one to touch this desk, and those orders are respected by all. Yes, this looks like a pretty good way to start things out in the morning. No rush, no fussing. Every member of the family has fulfilled his or her obligations, and each one will go out to the day's work better able to cope with its problems. This is a good time to remind you that you owe another obligation, to your health. A good breakfast is the proper foundation for the activities of a busy day. And there's no worry about lunch either. Sis takes care of that department, making the lunches the night before. It gives her a chance to practice some of the ideas she gets in her homemaking classes. Yes, they're on their way, with a good breakfast, and what's more important, a good disposition. We have seen this family start today. Now let's see what happens after school. Only 4 o'clock, and he's doing tonight's homework. What's wrong with these two anyway? Do they have to study all afternoon and evening? No, they just want to hear a special broadcast tonight. So they're hard at work, each in his or her room. No outside interference and no radio now. This boy and girl both consider their schoolwork one of their most important obligations to themselves and their family. Now that their homework is finished and the dinner dishes put away, this boy and girl have ample time to enjoy their favorite programs. Let me repeat, they are enjoying the program. Mother and father are enjoying a bridge game with some friends. One of the principal rules in this house is that a radio or phonograph is heard only in the room in which it is played, so that only those who wish to listen may do so. Well, it looks like that's all for tonight. Forget something? But it's not all for Sis. She's appointed herself chairman of the refreshment committee. This is Mother's and Father's night, and daughter wants to help them enjoy it. Also, daughter feels it is one of her obligations to be gracious to her parents' friends. She's glad to help Mother entertain, because Mother never fails to help her play hostess to her friends. This is another of Brother's obligations and pleasures. He takes pride in keeping the car clean and shining, and in return, he gets to use it for certain occasions. This is a family car in every sense of the word. So the men of the family do their best to keep it looking like new. And the women of the family don't shirk their cleaning tasks either. Yes, this is a busy day for all concerned. Brother shows his ability as a gardener. Here's another gardener. This particular patch belongs to Sis and to nobody else. She prides herself on her green thumb, which in garden talk means she's a success at growing things. It looks like everything is ready for the weekend, since these young people have shared in the work and responsibility for a tennis date, too. How about it, brother? Will you lend her your racket? You will? That's the kind of a brother to have. Sharing personal belongings in this family is a common practice, because every member feels an obligation as a borrower to the lender. Yes, Sis takes care of things loaned to her. She knows that Brother would have to pay for a restringing job out of his allowance, and she's going to save him every dime she can. And speaking of money, this family has worked out a program that should please any boy and girl, and at the same time make better citizens out of them. The share of family money given to each one for personal use is divided into 3 parts. Some to save for saving's sake, and there is a steady record of deposits. Some to save for something they want. A new sweater for her wardrobe, perhaps. For Brother, a new trout rod. Then there is some left to spend for amusement, the usual sodas and cokes and picture shows. It's up to brother and sister to decide how much they will allocate for each purpose. They manage their own funds, and in doing so, learn the value of money. In this family, the members have learned to live with each other by understanding their obligations and fulfilling them. They cooperate by making each other's chores as light as possible. They are able to enjoy life more because they have more time for enjoyment and the feeling that tasks assigned to them have been accomplished. They are alert to the problems which confront all of us, and they will be prepared to cope with each problem as it arises. They have a sense of security because they understand the value of money and other material things assigned to their care. This boy and girl are going to be well equipped when the time comes to take their places as worthy members of adult society. How about going back over what we've seen? Our goal is, obviously, to avoid becoming another case like Mr. Smith, a man whose present sad condition could have been avoided if he had learned when young how to organize his life, how to handle his obligations. A family in a state of perpetual chaos is really just a family which isn't living up to its own responsibilities. What you can do to avoid turning out to be like the Smiths is not so hard. Learn to take care of your own possessions. Keep your own room neat, clean, habitable. It's an obligation you owe your family and yourself. Learn to get up in the morning early enough to have a pleasant, satisfactory meal before the day begins. So you'll start off in good health and good spirits. And while we're at it, we may as well remind you that you'll live most of your life to some sort of a schedule. If you learn to keep that schedule so that it doesn't get ahead of you, you won't mind living by the clock. One of your chief obligations is to pay close attention to your studies during school years. Presumably your parents send you to school to get everything possible out of the experience, not merely to comply with the law. It's your obligation to make the most of school now. It will reward you well when you're earning your own living. The problem of allocating radio and television time can get to be a sore point with any family. To avoid trouble, do your chores and homework first. Then take time off for your favorite programs. And when you're listening, remember, keep it to yourself. Don't let it bother others. When Mother and Dad entertain, remember that you share the role of host. It's your home too, and they want you to be part of the pride they feel in it. Meet their guests graciously. Speaking of pride in your home, don't wait to be reminded that the yard needs cleaning up. After all, if you're going to entertain, you'll want your home to look its best. Your friends won't mind if your home is modest, but they will if it's unkempt. That's a condition you can change. Anytime you must, in emergency, borrow the possessions of some other member of the family, make sure you take good care of them and return them on time. It's an obligation you owe to their owners, don't you think? One of your principal obligations is to systematize your saving so that when you see something you really need or very much want, you won't have to beg Dad for it or borrow on next week's allowance. Learning to take care of family obligations in early years is easy. After all, it's only a matter of getting into a pattern of good living habits. Once they become habits, you needn't worry about them. Take care of your obligations now, and when you meet the responsibilities of adult life, you'll find that they will take care of you.